gonna bark at me. So what does Marie Antoinette's hair and cake have in common? They use the same ingredients.
Let them eat cake.
Okay, but seriously, 18th century hair care was founded in the use of pomatum, or pomade, which is an animal fat-based deep conditioning product, and hair powder, dry shampoo, made out of wheat starch. I began researching 18th century hair care and hairdressing back in 2014, and while I will eventually deep dive into myth busting and super nerdy academic stuff about pomade and powder in the future, today I wanted to focus on making some pomade and powder for a thing I'm doing next week that I literally leave tomorrow for, and I'm not stressed or anything, it's fine. However, I fully understand that in order for you all to get what I'm doing and also care about what this video is about, we do need to do a quick rundown over what pomade and powder are, how they're made, how to use them, and all that. Because not only did 18th century Western society use pomade and powder as a part of their hair hygienic routine, but these products were also fundamental in dressing 18th century hair in the various elaborate hairstyles that were popular during the century. Now, in this video, I will not be demonstrating an 18th century hairstyle. That's actually probably gonna come early next year. And maybe not actually on my channel, but in someone else's channel that you guys will be aware of. Anyways, but I will be showing you how to make the pomade and powder and how to do a basic application today. With that being said, shameless plug time. If you actually want to learn how to do some 18th century hairstyles though, you can buy my book on 18th century beauty. Link in the description below. Now, before we get into making pomade and powder, I do want to give a quick thank you to the sponsor of this week's video, Acorn TV. I've been doing a lot of traveling for work this autumn, and being able to relax in my hotel or Airbnb after a long day of filming, networking, and just doing all the things, it leaves me desperate for some cozy TV to watch while I decompress from a very long day. Acorn TV luckily has got me covered as the largest commercial-free British streaming service that has thousands of hours of comedies, movies, period dramas, documentaries, and more content being added every week. One of Acorn TV's offerings is Midsummer Murders, an extremely popular and classic British TV mystery series, with its 22nd season actually airing exclusively on Acorn TV. So, you know, if you're into Midsummer Murders, that's what it is. If mysteries aren't your thing, which is totally cool, I recently binged a bit of their British documentaries like She-Wolves, England's Early Queens, Britain's Bloody Crown, and Britain's Bloodiest Dynasty. What can I say? I have a soft spot for slightly melodramatic British history documentaries with questionable costuming for their reenactments. Now, for only $5.99 a month, you can stream Acorn TV on your favorite browser via their app or with your favorite streaming device from Apple, Android, and more. With Acorn TV, there is always something new to discover. Try Acorn TV free for 30 days by going to acorn.tv and use the code AbbyCox in all lowercase letters because promo codes are case sensitive. Thanks again to Acorn TV for sponsoring this week's video. All right, so main question. What the heck is pomade and powder? And also usually when people find out it's made out of animal fat, they go, ew, oh my God, gross. It's not gross, it's very cool. Yeah. Nose to tail, guys, nose to tail. Now, 18th century hair care was founded in a no-wash methodology and focused on using pomade, which is usually made out of pork lard and or mutton tallow, and occasionally other animal fats, that has been washed and scented to create a very creamy hair product that looks and sometimes feels identical to modern pomades today. Now, I know a lot of people get a bit freaked out by it being animal fat, but it really does make an excellent deep conditioner for your hair and skin. Like, it's nice. If not sometimes a little gamey, but it's usually really nice. Now, while there are many different recipes for pomades that are out there, my favorite is actually from an 1826 book called A New Supplement to Pharmacopoeias of London, Edinburgh, Dublin, and Paris by James Rennie. It is a great basic pomade. I mean, like, they literally just call it common pomatum. Like, common pomatum. Delightfully average, not exciting at all. Your mama's pomatum. Everybody loves pomatum. And when it's done correctly, it has like this amazing consistency, takes on numerous scents easily, and is used as the base pomade for other types of pomade, like hard pomade.
Wow, that is really hard.
That's what she said.
This common pomatum recipe is the recipe that we're going to be making today, starting with rinsing that lamb tallow in fresh water for 12 days so it doesn't stink. So it's actually really easy to make. It's just, making sure you get your ratios correct. I've already added water to the bottom pot of the double boiler, so that is ready to go. And what I need to do now is drain and dry the mutton tallow and then weigh it out in the double boiler and we'll be set to go. So let's drain this for the final time. My recipe, I wrote it down, Chrissy, so you should be proud of me. So the recipe says just with any sort of, to dry it off with linen. We're just using basic kitchen towels in this house. And these are festive cat Halloween themed ones, which is perfect. I assume that these were actually my mom's and somehow they ended up in our kitchen. And then we just kind of roll it. You want to get the water off as much as you can. And honestly, if I had thought about it, I would have rolled it out and dried it. Oops. We'll make it work. I think we'll be okay. It's really dry here in Reno. The water usually just kind of burns off anyway, so I'm not too stressed about it. But if I had thought about it, I would have actually done this part before I had gone out and grabbed the double boiler from Bed Bath & Beyond, but I didn't, so here we are. Okay, let's drain this thing for the last time. I am ready to get this stuff made. Okay, there we go. So I've actually made this recipe a lot over the years. This was not my first pomade recipe that I experimented with, but it was definitely my favorite that I've ever worked with, especially when the ratio is good and I don't fuck it up. Yeah, we're good. So I'm not really looking at the instructions because at this point I don't really need to, just FYI. So funny story, when I first started making this recipe, because even back in the day I used to have my own Etsy shop and I would sell pomade and powder on it. I wasn't 100% sure. I understood the concept theory of rinsing it. I kind of was okay, it obviously it's for a reason. They don't, well, I take that back. I learned the hard way that they actually tell you to rinse it for a good reason, because one time I didn't rinse it properly and it stunk. The pomade did not smell good. It was not nice. No. Was not a fan. It was really bad. And so I was talking to my oldest friend, Kelly, because we've been friends since we were 7. And she's a very outdoorsy girl. And I was talking to her about this. And I was talking about rinsing it and how when we rinsed it, it didn't smell. And she was like, oh yeah, that's normal. And then she proceeded to tell me that her family, because they hunt and fish, that they would always rinse their venison, they would rinse the catfish, which that makes total sense because catfish. But they would rinse all the meat to kind of get the gamey flavor out and to kind of help rinse that flavor out. And so they would do rinses of the meat over periods of time to get the taste out. And so that's when I was like, oh. That's why we rinse the mutton tallow, because the mutton tallow is gamey. And this is even lamb's tallow, so it'd be less gamey than mutton tallow, because mutton is older. Actually, this is good. There's some subi hair in it, but that is to be expected in this household. So that's why it's really important to rinse your mutton tallow. It just really, yeah, the smell of it is very, very faint now compared to what it was when I was scooping it out of the jar. Yeah. This is super gamey. This doesn't really smell like much of anything. And the 12 days I think are important too, because before I had also rinsed it once where it was only 7 days, or I only changed the water a couple of times, and that did not work. It really has to be at least 12 days. Obviously, if you can go longer, it's not gonna hurt it. It's just gonna make it smell better, but the 12 days really helps ensure that it's not gamey at all. Okay, so this is actually dried pretty fast because they're nice large chunks. There's not a lot to deal with, so I'm happy with that. So we're going to weigh out the mutton to 14 ounces. Okay, I don't know if this is anyone else too, but I sat there and I was just is it double boiler or double broiler? And I think that's just an accent thing where it's kind of you want to say broiler, even though it's not the broiler because the broiler's in the oven. But I was wait, it's double boiler, right? But how many people actually say double broiler? Anyways, random things I think about. I think this batch is gonna come out really good. This mutton feels kind of softer than normal, which is not a bad thing. Is that a Griffey hair? That's a Griffey hair. 14 ounces. Woo, there we go. 14.4, that works for me. Okay, so we have the mutton tallow in. Now it's time to do the lard. The reason why the fats we use matter in pomade is that different animal fats and vegetable fats and nut fats have different fatty acid chains and ratios. And so it's not, because I got this a lot where people are like, well, I want to make it vegan or I want to make it vegetarian. And so the kind of knee jerk is like, oh, I'll just exchange it for coconut oil. But coconut oil has a very low melt point where pig lard and mutton tallow have different melting points. They also have different fatty acid points. I need to look that up, but let's insert that here. So this ratio of mutton to lard is really important for this particular type of pomade. Now, with that being said, I see a lot of pomades that have different types of animal fats. I've seen one with hen's fat. I've seen them, obviously, a lot of them are pig's lard. But you see references to different types of like bear grease or something like that. I've actually never seen beef tallow used for hair pomade, which I find interesting because we use beef tallow a lot today in like natural beauty. Like you can find it on Etsy for like skincare because the fatty acid profile is very similar to the human fatty acid profile and like how our skin and our chemistry works. But this stuff is really meant to interact well with our human body composition. Okay, so we have 14 ounces. Let's tear this. Oh God.
You can do it!
Oh God. That was like very underwhelming. Rude. Oh, this is actually semi-liquefied on top. Interesting. You know, this really is not the best lard. Okay. I was gonna use my Fat Works, but I'm not. Usually I've used leaf lard, but this pork lard, I'm not liking the way it's looking. So I've been cooking with this, but I have plenty in here. Regenerative pork fat from Thrive Market. Okay, so this pork lard, you can kind of see it has this sort of like yellowish, brownish tone. It's actually not too dissimilar to how like bacon grease looks, where like this is whiter and more opaque. And so when the fat is lighter colored like this, it's more purified and it's better cleaned. And this one also doesn't smell as much as this one does. So we're gonna use this one. When I was born, my grandpa made this stool and it says Grandpa's Girl on it. So, and I still use it because I'm short. And I want to do a little bit more than 3 ounces just because I do like the creaminess that lard gives. There we go. A little bit more than 4. Okay, now I made a conscious decision to do that just because I want it to be a little bit softer. Recipe technically divided equally, it should be only 3 ounces, but I made the conscious decision to do that. So we're going with it. It's gonna be very exciting, right? Right, okay. Now we can put this thing actually on the double boiler. And now we wait. I'm gonna take this off because that is a little over full and it's having a bit of a moment. I need a scoopy just to kind of take the edge off. Don't get it on my camera. Don't get it on my camera. Don't pour it on my foot. That doesn't feel good either. So this is melting really quickly. I'm not surprised. So every time I've ever made this before, it's usually been like huge amounts and it takes like forever for it to melt. So making like the smaller batch is going much more quickly than I'm used to. So I'm like, oh wow, novel. But I'm getting ready to kind of be ready to start mixing it. We still have some larger chunks at the bottom, but it's gone pretty liquidy. Let's get me a wooden spatula. Oh yeah, almost there. Just a few bits of the lamb, which is normal because it has a higher melting point. And it doesn't smell gamey, so that's a very good sign. All right, I think we're good. I'm not, other than like the rogue Suba hair, I'm not seeing anything, so I think we're good. So let's turn you off. God, this thing is gross. Do not judge me. I don't use it very often, and frankly, they're kind of hard to clean. I can put this in just like in a Pyrex bowl and it'll be good. This is gonna make a mess. So this should go pretty quickly too because it's already starting to turn opaque. And we want this to kind of start turning opaque, and then we're gonna add scent. Usually it's lemon and clove, but I wanted to try something different, and I found this rose bergamot blend, which is like so 18th century scent smelly. So that's what we're gonna add today. Okay, I need to move. This is not, we don't have time to like chit chat with this. Like this is, you move now or it's gonna get, and I'm making a mess. This is still too aggressive. Oh well. This is to help mix it all in, make sure all the make sure all the fats are blended. Get some air in it so it's a little bit more of a whipped texture. Usually this kind of comes out more like a modern pomade does, kind of creamy, but adding a little bit of air into it isn't a bad thing. And I'm totally getting fat everywhere. So I want it opaque and not super hot, so that way the scent doesn't like burn off essentially. Because if it's too warm, this thing kind of doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So it's still kind of hot to the touch. It's getting a little bit more viscousy. Okay, it's warm, but it's not super hot. So I think we're getting really close. Oh my God, this is going so fast. Cannot see the bottom. More smell. You need a lot of scent to really bring the scent forward. So, but I think that's pretty decent. That smells pretty good. Oh God, there's just more hair. It's Subasa. Jeez Louise. Oh, she's looking mighty fine, my friends. Mighty fine. Okay. Yeah, let's. Okay, so I have cleaned out my rouge jars and they've been washed and sanitized and all that. So I'm gonna pour the fat into these and then we're gonna let them sit with the tops off. Let them just kind of cool to room temperature. And just so we're clear, if like you were wanting to use this for a long time, fat is a preservative, but you need to make sure everything's kind of not contaminated in any way. Since I'm not super concerned about longevity with these pomades, I'm not being overly careful. Obviously too, I'm not consuming these, like we're not eating this, like this is for hair. I'm gonna pour you back into the double boiler. You, there, you're good. Okay, now for the rest of you, get in here. And wow, this actually still made more than what I anticipated. Okay. Okay, so that's poured in, that's ready to go. Let's move these behind me so they can start finishing their cooling. They're very full. I'm very excited about these guys. I think this is gonna be a really good batch. The fact that I should be able to also have hard pomade out of this is like just a bonus. Let's get this back up. Okay, wax. Okay, 2 ounces. Okay, now let's do it again. So this pomade can either be in the little pots like what we made, or it can actually be rolled, or in, I have silicone like soap molds because it makes it easier to handle. Hard pomade is really good for really hot climates, but it's also used for 18th century hairstyles when it comes to like wanting to have a lot of structure or teasing involved. So you see it a lot in the buckles. So I'm gonna prep some of these molds, and it's gonna be the same thing as last time. We're gonna melt this down, incorporate it, put it back into the glass bowl, blend it so until it kind of becomes semi-congealed, opaque, a little cooler to the touch. We'll have to add some more scent because the scent is gonna burn off. And then we'll pour it into the molds, and then we'll have hard pomade too. And I'm very excited. I don't know if you guys can tell. So the waxes takes a little bit of time, but this is such a little bit of, there we go. That was easy. Yep, oh, just a little bit left. Oop, that was hot, that's hot, that's very hot. Put you there. There's so little in it that I think honestly it'll just end up disappearing. So let's just get you there. So we'll just kind of do it the way it tells us to, which is just to use a wooden spatula and mix it until it cools. You don't want this airy. This is gonna be dense, it's gonna be waxy. It should be moldable. The scent still smells pretty strong too. I will add just a little bit just to be on the safe side. I've never had pomade have too much scent before. We went from like liquid to goo. Oh God, you guys still cannot see. Like that went from like 0 to 60 really quickly. All right, so now it's time to let these cool and come to room temperature, solidify, harden, and we'll see how well they turned out. And then after that, it's time to put them to the test. The second product that was used in keeping your hair fresh, clean, and styleable, is that a word? Is that a word? Anyways, it's a word now, I've decided. It's hair powder. Now, like I said, hair powder is basically another way to say dry shampoo, with starch being its main ingredient. Traditionally, wheat starch was used for hair powder. So just to do a real quick bust of a myth here, flour was not normally used as hair powder, unless, and I quote, the use of flour for hair powder that has been confined to only the low barber shops who had a number of working people to dress on Sundays, whose wish was to appear decent once a week and could not afford to pay for starch powder. So really, really low working class folks who were like going to church on Sunday and they wanted to look nice and presentable, and so they went to the cheapest barber they could, and they kind of just got slapped with some flour. Okay, now, moving on. While normal hair powder was usually white, colored hair powder was also trendy. I've seen recipes for pink, blue, yellow, brown, and black hair powder with various degrees of toxicity depending on what painter's pigment is used to create that color. We'll probably never make those here, just by the way. I don't know, maybe we'll, someone feels brave. I tried it once. It was really messy. And then I learned how toxic those pigments can be. And I was like, probably shouldn't do that anymore.
I shouldn't have said that. I should not have said that.
It's not a good idea. But you know what? If you're feeling brave, I'll put a link to the Blackamo's book down in the description below, which has recipes, so you can at least look at them and see what's in them. They're really cool. The pink recipe and the rose recipe are different colors. The pink recipe is actually blue, but it's scented with pinks, like the flower, and then the rose recipe is actually the pink colored hair powder, not to be confusing. Anyways, in order to achieve the colorful look, the colored hair powder would actually be applied over white hair powder as like a final touch. And also apparently, rumor has it, that Charles Fox, one of the prime ministers of England, was actually a fan of blue hair powder and he wore it a lot. So just like imagine like, oh my God, I've blanked on the god-awful prime minister. Boris Johnson. Could you imagine Boris Johnson with blue hair? Oh, that'd be funny. He would look kind of like a Muppet. Anyways, moving on. Finally, cheap hair powders could and would actually be adulterated with pretty dangerous substances like French chalk, plaster, clay, lime, etc. So, yeah, if you find yourself like stuck in the 18th century just because like, you know, you touch some stones and all of a sudden you're getting weird with Jamie Fraser, don't buy cheap hair powder. Buy the good stuff. Trust me on this one. Now, luckily for us today, most hair powder ingredients are easy to come by, and hair powder is also extremely easy to make. Some of the recipes have bone in them. In my experience, I don't really see the point. It's also really, really hard to find mammal bones that can be ground up into a fine enough powder to make it a viable option for wheat starch. So this is just kind of my variation over a recipe in Toilet de Flora. It's super, super simple. It is wheat starch and some orris root, and that's it. You could add scent to this. I've experimented with adding like essential oils to it. You could totally like put the powder in with like lavender buds or other flowers and just kind of let it sit and allow like the natural oils in the flowers to kind of dissipate into the powder, but we don't have time for that. So literally all we're doing is sifting the orris root in with the powder into the bowl, making sure that's all nice and blended. Any sort of larger chunks get worked out with the sieve, and then I'm going to put it in a plastic bag. Because I'll be traveling with it and it travels better in a plastic bag. And that is it. Super, super simple. I need a pound of the wheat starch and 2 ounces of the orris root powder. It's actually the root of the iris plant. And you can see it has this kind of like soft yellow tone to it. And the scent of the root is this kind of earthy floral scent. So it helps just kind of soften the hair, like the powder, a little bit color-wise, but mostly it's there to kind of give a little bit of scent and like a dry powder form. Oh, oh my God. Hit myself in the uterus there. That's perfect. So you want to use wheat starch instead of flour because wheat starch is finer, it's cleaner, it's brighter, it's just a lot nicer. So if you don't want to use wheat starch, you don't have access to wheat starch, even though it's readily available online, I would substitute like either rice starch or potato starch, corn starch, but substitute a starch, not flour, because it behaves more like other starches. So just a little bit. The wheat starch is pretty good when it comes to clumps. Yeah, it's the orris root that really still wants to clump. So you kind of have to be a little conscientious of that when you're using the powder. And that's it. Super easy. The orris root is also heavier than the wheat starch, so you gotta kind of be aware of that. It's part of the reason why I want to put it in a bag and then like pour it into a plate or a bowl when I use it, is to kind of help make sure that the orris root and the starch stay incorporated. That is not gonna work. Oh dear, oh dear. Can I do it now? Will you sit and be open? No, we're good. Hair powder is ready to go. So what that means, guys, is pomade is done, both common and hard pomatum. Hair powder is done. Now it's time to see what it actually looks like on hair. So let's get beautified or something, I don't know. Woo! Once your pomade and powder are made, it's time to treat yourself to a hair care ritual fit for a queen. The public spectacle and nip slips are optional though. First, you comb out and section off your hair into manageable pieces. Take a moderate amount of pomade into your hands, warm it up and emulsify it, and then you actually begin to apply it to the hair. You have enough pomade when your hair is thoroughly coated and has that kind of like towel dried look to it. You all know what I mean. How much pomade you use is also totally dependent on your hair's texture, thickness, dryness level, oiliness level, all of it. There is actually no set amount here. It's literally just however much has to be used to make your hair look a certain way. And everyone has different hair, just by the way. Like, it's never the same for anybody else. Now, after the pomade has been applied to your entire head, it's time to powder the hair, which is where the magic happens. The starch attaches itself to the fat, okay? And then like it absorbs the excess moisture, and then it gives the starch like that additional volume, and then it creates this texture to the hair, like hair itself. And you want the hair to be evenly coated in the powder, so it has this like beautiful, dry, soft look to it, and like there's no like wet looking spots. And like the pomade, the amount of powder you actually use is again dependent on your hair texture, length, absorbency, thickness, all of it. Sometimes it feels like the hair is just sucking up all the pomade and powder and that you'll never be finished. And sometimes it takes 10 minutes. Like literally it has taken me hours to pomade and powder someone's hair before because of just their hair texture and length and thickness, where like I can actually pomade and powder my hair like at this length in like 10-20 minutes. Like it's just like bam, but it's just hair texture for you. Now, once hair powder is applied, you want to run like a wide tooth comb through the hair a few more times just to make sure that there's no scalp buildup, which can be a little itchy.
Are you scratching?
No, this is what I do for luck, okay?
And now you're ready to enjoy your hair that's at least like 3 times thicker, it's moldable, it's sculptable, and it's clean, at least by 18th century standards.
Oh my God.